this proposal for the development of Westernport really has been a politician's wet dream.
There's so many things that can kill benthic creatures in the intertidal mud. Dredging, oil spills and marine pests are up there in the top three.
Once an area is dredged, it has to be dredged and dredged and dredged, and that too is the problem in Westernport. The bottom of the barge just opened up and it just dropped the contents onto the seabed of Port Phillip Bay. Unlike any other containment facility on land for contaminated material, toxic dump in Port Phillip Bay is not licensed by the EPA and it is not regulated.
Oil spills require you to take a different look at the world. You actually have to go, I'm not sure that I feel comfortable about this anymore.
I did have a bit of an internal struggle one day when I had to watch an oil bird drown.
Oil spills are a part of shipping.
Birds are not the only thing that's affected. Everything right down to the tiniest invertebrates, of course.
Something like 3,500 ships a year would be coming to Westernport. Ballast water is the vector for exotic organisms. Port Phillip Bay, which has about 3,500 ship visits a year, has about 400 exotic species in it. Westernport Bay has very few exotic organisms, and Westernport Bay, as I said before, only has about 200 ships in it. So it's axiomatic, isn't it, that the numbers of exotic organisms and the impacts of them are going to increase in Westernport.
You're actually all part of the problem, believe it or not, because you all consume stuff.
Ports operate 24 hours a day.
Stuff, and you produce waste.
Trucks move in and out of the Port of Melbourne 24 hours a day.
Oil spills are probably not the single biggest risk to Westernport Bay.
It's not a pleasant experience living near a port.
Of the 30 biggest risks, only 6 of them are related to oil and shipping. Most of them are related to changes in your catchment.
The bay is sensitive to too many nutrients.
Getting heaps of ships in and Melbourne becoming a centre point for trade in the Pacific Rim, and then turning us into a sort of warehousing, freight and logistics centre. With any port development, you'd also have to think about these larger scale loading operations. There is all this talk about wanting to export brown coal, and there's nowhere to export it from. So you can be pretty much guaranteed that they're not going to truck coal into the centre of Melbourne, and really the only other place is Westernport.
Even though the government have said that there is no longer a Gippsland rail link on this plan, I don't think that people should quite put away their banners and things yet, because that was always going to be down the track, and coal exports are very high on the agenda.
One of the campaigns we worked on was toxic trade, and that was about export of hazardous materials from rich countries to poor countries, so the reverse of the stuff coming in, it was the stuff going out. And one of the worst offenders was the shipping industry itself. The shipping industry is a very pragmatic industry, and to a large extent they've been exempted from many regulations and do get away with a lot.
It was found that sewers entering the harbours in Bangladesh were obviously had the cholera disease in them, and the ballast water that was taken on in those harbours kept the cholera organism alive, and when the ballast was discharged in Peru, it entered the shellfish beds, and then the Peruvian people ate the shellfish, and 10,000 Peruvian people died in 1991 of cholera, thanks to the shipping industry. And I doubt very much that the shipping industry would have contributed much to the cost of looking after those people. Whilst we were worrying ourselves sick about all the contaminants that were happening in the water, what really passed me by was this issue here, the amount of pollution coming from ships, air pollution from ships. One large ship can generate about 5,000 tonnes of sulphur oxide. Shipping emissions are twice the emissions from aviation. Aviation emissions, of course, are regulated. Already shipping is double all of the emissions from Britain and more than all of the African countries combined. And it's immune from regulation. One giant ship can emit as much cancer and asthma-causing pollution as 50 million cars. And all of that costs up to $33 billion a year in health costs, mainly for lung and heart diseases. Pollution from these 90,000 ships that I've just been giving a good kicking to leads up to 60,000 deaths per year around the world. The coastal buffer could save up to 8,000 US lives per year, and that is what is happening in the US at the moment. They are legislating, at least in California that I'm aware of, to have a coastal buffer zone which forces ships to stay outside 26 miles of the coast, I think, until the very last possible time when they're entering the port, and then they need to switch to a cleaner fuel.
We are all drivers, we are all creating a demand for this fuel. So whilst ever we continue to do that, which is pretty hard to stop, but these things are going to happen and human error is always going to come in.
I've lived through 40 years of this, or intensively involved with it, 30 years anyway, and the same nonsense has come out regularly at about 5-year intervals. The whole thing is sensitive. Here we've got an enclosed lot of water, piece of water which is really quite a small volume, and wherever you are, you're less than 5 k's from very sensitive country.